All right, everybody. Yesterday was a very funny day. A very, very, very funny day. Because Donald Trump went to court yesterday. And not only did he go to court, but he went to a courtroom that had cameras that were filming. A courtroom where he went to the witness stand to testify. Where he allegedly, quote, lost it on the stand. I had this video in my recommended by MSNBC. It apparently shows footage of the court case, or of the trial, sorry, and him just melting on the stand. And I have not even seen a bit of it yet. I am very excited to check this out. So let's just hop right in, because we're in for some more Donald Trump pack watching. Let's go. MSNBC can be a little bit copyright happy. So if my stream gets knocked out, be patient. It will come back after I pause it, and don't play it for a bit. But I'll try to stay on top of pausing the stream, or pausing the video frequently, to try to avoid YouTube auto taking down my stream for copyright. YouTube just shoots first and asks questions later when it comes to their TOS in regards to copyright on YouTube, where like they'll literally just take down your stream temporarily until you stop playing copyrighted content. And you literally can't appeal for it to be seen as fair use until after you finish the stream. So it's like, you can't. Yes, it is fair use, but you can't make your case to YouTube for that until after you've stopped the stream. So it's impossible to do a live, in YouTube's view, fair use coverage of certain things that are like MSNBC, Vice, you know, big corporations that decide to auto-strike YouTubers that cover their stuff. Anyway, let's see what we can get out of this, though. I want to see this.
Donald Trump taking the stand. The former president called to testify in the New York civil fraud trial, testifying under oath for 5 hours. NBC News reporting his rage came out on the stand today and that he seemed restless.
I really do love that we have people whose job it is to sit in a courtroom with, like, crayons and paints and to draw like a cool poster of like the court case, you know? Like, this isn't even a representation of what actually happened. They're like, this isn't a real like perspective, I don't think, unless this is like the judge and this is the witness stand here, maybe. This looks more like a movie poster. They're emanating purple energy. Like, it's like they're emanating like purple anime power or something. I don't even know.
While also losing his composure as he lashed out at the judge. Trump saying the judge, quote, called me a fraud and he didn't know anything about me.
This judge has already threatened to hold him in contempt of court for insulting a clerk that worked for the judge, by the way. I covered that story already. So he was already on extremely thin ice and told, if you do anything like this again, I will hold you in contempt of court.
Well, to be clear, he did not call him a fraud, but that did not stop Donald Trump from being Donald Trump. He also said to the judge, quote, you believe this political hack back there, referring to Attorney General Letitia James, and that's unfortunate. NBC News detailing he was, quote, losing it on the witness stand. And when he finished his outburst, the AG's lawyer asked him, quote, done? To which Trump replied, done. The only thing that I wish in that moment that the Attorney General's attorney would have asked him was, are you finished or are you done? That would have just really made my night, but he didn't. Despite Trump's antics, he actually made some major admissions about the fraud allegations on the stand. When he was asked by the lawyer from the AG's office if he ever thought, quote, the values were off in your statement of financial condition, Trump replied, quote, yes, on occasion, both high and low.
You may think, oh my God, Donald Trump's lawyer must have been like freaking the fuck out when he said that, right? Like, you're probably thinking, oh yeah, Trump's lawyer was probably like tearing his hair out in the back of the room watching that go down. No, Donald Trump can't hire good, real lawyers anymore. Donald Trump's gone through so many lawyers that his lawyers have lawyers, and those lawyers are going through legal trouble because you have to break the law in order to legally defend Donald Trump. You have to be a criminal to be Donald Trump's lawyer. You have to do crime. And so Rudy Giuliani, one of Donald Trump's lawyers, if I recall correctly, currently going through legal shit, in a lot of trouble. Michael Cohen, another one of Donald Trump's lawyers, if I recall correctly, literally went to fucking prison, right? Like, I think the list literally goes further here. Like, I'm pretty certain the list goes further, and there's just examples that aren't coming to mind. Yeah, Rudy did a lot of bad stuff, yeah. But it seems like you have to be, like, in his criminal organization and be a fall guy for him if you're going to be his attorney. And so knowing that that is his reputation, no lawyers will represent him. No real, actual good lawyers that he could buy with his money will actually represent him, because it's career suicide, and it's frankly their entire life suicide, because they may end up in prison if they represent him.
Now, at one point, Donald Trump even agreed that the financial statements that were used to induce banks to lend money. See, and this is a point that's really important because it's key to the Attorney General's case against the former president and his organization.
But why are you making fun of me saying, if I recall correctly? Wait, dude, okay, guys, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a secret of being a content creator. If you ever say something incorrectly with the slightest bit of conviction, tons of people online will use that as an excuse to, like, clip it, spread it around to people, and try to make you look like a dumbass. So clarifying that you might be wrong and not being too full of conviction when you make a claim you're not 100,000,000% sure on is kind of what you have to do to be a content creator and not have been canceled years ago. I literally wouldn't be here now anywhere near as successful as I am now if I didn't clarify when I didn't know something for 100%, because there would be millions of videos by now just taking the opportunity of like grifting clout off of correcting me on the most basic mistakes and saying, Zan's a dumb fuck. Look, he said this. He didn't even clarify that he could be wrong. You know, like, yeah. Like, for example, recently I accidentally said like 10 million people could potentially have their lives at risk in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. And I had my number off by like 2.5 million maybe. And there were entire Twitter posts with hundreds of likes shit-talking me for that, with like clipping that out of context. You gotta understand, if I dare even get a number wrong in relation to any topic, there are going to be smartasses out there trying to spread that around to people who don't know of me to make sure that is their first introduction to me, is me getting something wrong. Because, you know, people want you to be bad. Like, it's the same thing with what I was talking about with Mr. Beast earlier, right? There's always going to be deranged people who hate you, who try to make you look bad because they just hate you. There's no logic to it. They just hate you. And that's as simple as it is.
And earlier in the day, Donald Trump slamming the trial as he walked into court. Let's take a listen.
You're about 7.5 million off. No, there's like, I was talking about total possible casualties in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. Okay? I very much over-exaggerated it, but when I talk about the total possible casualties that could happen from this conflict, I wasn't off by 7 million, okay? You don't have to hyperbolize how off my numbering was. That's a good example of that tendency that I'm talking about right there.
Fair situation. This is
Let's enjoy
really
Trump.
Election interference. That's all it is. This trial is ridiculous. It's very unfair. But in the meantime, the people of the country understand it. They see it, and they don't like it. They don't like it because it's political warfare, as you would call it, or political lawfare.
Now, when reporters
political lawfare, dude, Trump just makes up words live on TV. And those words end up becoming a thing you just have to, like, accept as a thing now in the political and social discourse now. How many times has Trump on live television made up a word, and that's now a word that's just a thing in politics now? Like, he makes up a phrase or makes up a word, and that's just a thing that exists in politics now. He completely made it up, but we got to deal with that being a thing.
Trump made a motion that was essentially zipping his lips. Attorney General James responding after Trump was excused for the stand for them today, basically saying the following.
Mr. Trump obviously can engage in all of these distractions, and that exactly what he did.
I meant things such as the term fake news being accepted as, like, in the way that Trump used it as, like, an acceptable phrase to be used the way they use it, you know? Like, where they just don't agree with, like, a completely, like, valid news story with all the evidence there, so they call it fake news. Calling everything they disagree with fake news, like that, or just insultingly saying if you disagree with me, you're fake news, that being a thing. That's more so what I was referring to.
What he committed on the stand today, but I will not be bullied.
Lawfare is a real word?
Harassed.
That's crazy.
This case will go on.
Trump's defense team chose not to cross-examine him after the Attorney General's office was done. Now, joining me to discuss all of this is Neil Catal, former acting U.S. Solicitor General, and Christy Greenberg, former prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. I just want to get right into this. Neil, I asked Nicole before we got off, and I'm going to ask you, was this the Donald Trump that you expected to hear take the stand today?
So first of all, I just want to say, Charles, it's a delight to see you in the chair. So great to see you there, my friend.
I'm so glad that Donald Trump truly is so narcissistic and insane and, like, crazy and awful that he cannot put a friendly mask on to save his own ass. People like Alex Jones and Trump are genuinely so in the, like, mindset that they are invincible that they will self-destruct when it comes down to it. I used to have so much fear that when it came down to it, these people would be able to act normal and save their asses the last second and keep things going. But in truth, they literally keep it going till they're crashing and burning on the ground. And I could not be more happy to see it. Alex Jones is getting fucking folded. And now Donald Trump is following the exact same path. Their egos are destroying them.
I was not surprised because, you know, Trump did what he always did.
Apparently, lawfare is a real word and Trump used it correct. Well, he didn't use it correctly. That's for sure, because Donald Trump actually is breaking the law on many, many counts. It's why he's dealing with so many court cases simultaneously.
He does cover a lot of ground. He attacked the lawyers. He attacked the New York Attorney General. He attacked the judge. But for all of his attacks, there was one key thing missing from Trump's testimony, which is any semblance of a colorable defense. And that is Donald Trump through and through. It's bloviating, it's distraction and the like. And that's why you saw this kind of crazy antics and behavior. He was not acting like any litigant I've ever seen in any courtroom, let alone someone who's a former high-ranking government official. I mean, he was rude.
Yeah, this is his next wife. That's not a lawyer. That's just a woman he hired that's going to be his next, that's his current mistress that, like, he's like,
all right, young lady, you're really pretty. I'm going to hire you to represent me in court. Have you seen Law & Order? You've seen Law & Order, right? Oh, of course you have. Of course you have. Yeah, we're from New York. Perfect. Okay. So, you've seen Law & Order. That's all you need to know. Look pretty in court. And let me do all the talking, and it'll be all good. It'll be all good.
He was obnoxious. He was trying to provoke the judge. And look, you know, Charles, as you know, I've represented murderers and white-collar criminals. I've never seen anyone behave like this in a courtroom. They respect the court. They respect the process. The one last thing I'd say about your question is, in a way, Trump was successful today by his metric, because we're talking more about his behavior and his temper tantrums than we are about the fact that the guy committed serious fraud. So it's a distraction technique, and in some ways it's working. It obviously won't work in the court of law, though.
Neil, I'm going to borrow a phrase from the former president.
My favorite thing are when people like Alex Jones, Andrew Tate, and Donald Trump think that the court of public opinion matters more than the court of law when they're literally in the courtroom. So they do their shtick to try to please their, like, audience that is not really, like, it mostly happens with internet figures, and Donald Trump is, like, the most internet figure president we've ever had, so I guess it applies quite well to him, too. But, like, look at Andrew Tate and his behavior around, like, his court stuff, right? He acts as though if he gets the internet to believe he's innocent, then the court will find him innocent, or that they just won't be able to send him to prison because there'll be massive protests and they'll be forced to let him free. He genuinely seems to be under that delusion because when he got released from holding, because you legally can't hold somebody for, like, a certain amount of time until they've had their trial date and the case is still being made because there's so much fucking evidence. And now they're adding on pedophilia charges too because some of his victims were underage and were out of from other countries too. So it's like a multinational thing. They couldn't keep him in prison any longer. They made sure he's not a flight risk. But Andrew Tate, instead of saying, owning up or saying he's still at least in legal trouble but still claiming he's innocent, instead he said that he's been found innocent and released. He's told his audience, and they believe it, that he's been found innocent and released, when that is very far from the case. He's just allowed to be free and in his home until his court date. He has by no means been found innocent or free. He is in deep fucking shit. He is not even close to being on the path towards freedom. But his audience believes that. And I guess it's just going to be funny to see, when Andrew Tate is carted off to, multiple decades in a Romanian prison. How are his fans going to react when literally moments before they received the news, they were under the impression he'd been released and found completely innocent? It's a very self-destructive method of trying to, crowd please the internet. But the internet is not the real world. They can have bearings on each other, but making the internet like you does not equal making a real-life physical courtroom like you, Or the judge, for that matter.
That we've heard him say a lot in terms of your answer, and that's, I've never seen anything like it. In practicing as a trial attorney, I have never seen anything like this in terms of a witness on the stand in court. But Christy, I want to pick up where Neil left off. Essentially, do you think that he did more damage to his case with respect?
Oh yeah, when Andrew Tate goes to prison, the cope from his fans is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be extraordinary. The trending tab on Twitter, when Top G is trending on Twitter after he gets sent to prison and his sentencing happens, and hashtag free Andrew Tate is trending, the amount of 12-year-olds you're going to see demanding Biden free Andrew Tate. Yes, I have seen those takes already. I have seen those Zoomer Andrew Tate fans unironically saying it's Biden's fault that Andrew Tate got arrested. Yeah, it's going to be some high-grade copium.
His testimony, or is there some silver lining that we're all missing that may mean that he did something positive or that he can turn into a win for himself?
It should have been a lot more damaging for him than it was. Like you said, I've never seen anything like this before. It seemed like a scene out of My Cousin Vinnie. There's the point in My Cousin Vinnie where, the judge says to Vinnie, "You're giving me an attitude." And he said, "Oh, so what? What else is new?" And what happens after that? The judge holds him in contempt and throws him in jail for the night. That's what would happen to any other defendant who acted this way, who was calling the judge extremely hostile, who was, rolling his eyes and making snide remarks the whole time, attacking the judge, attacking the AG. I mean, it was really...
I really hope the judge is just holding back so that whenever it comes time for sentencing, he can just drop the fucking hammer on him and Trump doesn't even expect it. I hope the judge is just holding back and wants it to be a surprise when he drops the hammer on Trump, and it's been decided already. I wish it was televised. A decent amount of it seems to have been, at least. There's video.
Outrageous behavior, and it would be a comedy if it wasn't so tragic that he's able to get away with that when no other defendant, no other witness in any other trial would be able to.
Neil, I want to point out, of course, this is already a civil trial. It's a bench trial. There is no jury. There are no cameras in the courtroom.
It's just the judge.
His freedom is not at stake in terms of whether he will go to jail. The judge has already ruled on summary judgment. You have all of these things that I want to remind the audience of, because this is very different than any of the other cases that he's currently facing. However, for anyone who's watching who says maybe...
While there are no risks of him going to prison or jail, besides being held in contempt of court, I suppose, if he commits another crime in the courtroom, that's what that is. With what he's currently being charged with, he can be fined quite substantially. And on top of that, this will reflect and have a bearing on the other court cases he's facing that do have potential prison time as a punishment for him if he's found guilty, Oh, his empire's gone after this? Very possible, yes. That's what we're rooting for. That's what we're hoping for.
What we can expect to see from Donald Trump, whether it's Fonnie Willis or whether it's Jack Smith, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think, I think your point about this being a bench trial is really important because Trump's techniques today might have worked if there was a distraction of a jury involved that doesn't know exactly what kind of testimony is relevant or something like that. But this is a bench trial overseen by a highly trained judge who knows what to listen for, and Trump did himself no favors today. The one way in which I think it might bear on Jack Smith and the other things, to the extent that Trump took the stand, which I just don't think he ever would in a criminal case. But, Trump is so egotistical. And I think that's where James's attorneys today really had some purchase, because Trump himself wanted to brag that he was in the room, that he actually had a lot to do with the valuations, even though, the prior defense strategy was all these real estate stuff was done by other people, not by Trump. Trump started bragging about his role and then was forced to acknowledge that he had overvalued some properties. So his ego essentially did him in today. To the extent we could get him to testify in a criminal trial, I think the same thing would happen, but I doubt that that would happen. I don't think any lawyer would let Donald Trump testify in a criminal matter.
I don't think any lawyer would let Donald Trump testify in a criminal matter. I love that
idea that he will not be taking this stand in any of his criminal trials, and I am pretty confident in standing by that, along with most lawyers that I know.
That's me.
Christy, let's talk nuts and bolts. So the prosecutor was able to elicit some admissions from Donald Trump about the fact that, number one, he was aware that there were some valuations that were inaccurate. He claimed to be both low and high. What do you make of that? How helpful or harmful do you think that will be to his individual defense?
Well, some of those he had to acknowledge, like Trump Tower, for example. The evaluation there dealt with a size that was 3 times larger than what it was. And, just think of anybody who's applying to a bank for a loan and says, well, here's my asset, here's my house or my apartment, and it's 3 times.
Donald Trump's family are also facing fraud charges right now. Donald Trump Jr., for example, is facing his own fraud case, right now. As we speak, he is, in court as well. Not right now at this moment, but, right now in this, period of time, he is in court, back and forth for his own fraud trial. So, they're a family of fraudsters. They're like the Mafia, but less cool. They're like a family of grifting, they're trying to be Mafia dudes, but they're pussies. They want to be a Mafia family, but they're too pussy. So they just do fraud and then, go to court for it. Yeah, it's like white-collar Mafiaing.
Times bigger than what it is, and the valuation is 400% larger than what it actually is. That's not accounting principles. That's not complicated accounting dealings. That's just plain fraud. And it was very clear that he had to acknowledge that was fraud. Right. And so he says it's a mistake. That's how he gets away with it. It was just a mistake. I don't know what happens there. And it's that's not a mistake. That's a huge, huge difference. That's egregious is what it is.
Neil, I got to ask you, to the extent that there have been other witnesses, whether currently or in the past, so you have Weisselberg, who's basically taken a plea, and then you have in this trial another witness who has basically sort of said that they are also partly responsible for some of these missed evaluations as far as these documents. To what extent do you think that also may provide cover for Donald Trump and the rest of the Trump organization, namely his children?
Yeah, it might have provided some cover. That was the defense that they were trying to go with, which was Trump was kind of out of the loop on this stuff. Right. But today, his ego got the best.
The go-to defense that Trump always goes to is that he's so important and has so many people that work under him that anything that could have been a crime that he supposedly committed must have been done as a mistake by somebody under him. And so he always directs the blame to a designated fall guy.
Of him, and he admitted to being involved in all this stuff and signing all these certifications and effectively lying in all these certifications. And there's a reason why we ask people to put their name on things. It's because they have to stand by what they signed. And Trump's defense today was, well, the bank still got a good deal. I paid them back for their loans. But the point of
They still got a good
the New York
deal.
Attorney General is saying
It was
is,
against
no,
the law, but
banks
they
all
still got a
lower
good deal.
because if you lie about your assets and say you have a lot more, then you're going to get a lower interest rate.
He blames it on Barron. That'd be hilarious.
The banks would have charged him a much higher interest rate if he told the truth. And sure, he eventually paid the loans back, but he never paid the higher interest rate back. That's the claim that the New York Attorney General is making. I heard zero answer from that today. And if anything, what today confirmed is that Trump was involved in this scheme.
Of course he was. Yeah, of course he was. Wait, yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, yeah, he's involved with all of it. Everything, like, none of these things are happening that could potentially legally jeopardize him without his direct say-so. People saying, Mr. Trump, are you sure about that? Him saying, yes, do it. A second, are you sure about that? Him threatening to fire them if they don't do it, and then them, like, frighteningly running away to do it begrudgingly, knowing if they don't, they'll get fired. That is how these things happen. He is very much a part and aware of all this shit he's being charged for.